The female accuser who has accused Jay-Z as well as Sean Puffy Combs of sexual assault in 2000 has come forward in a new interview, and it's something that everyone's talking about. She outlines a lot of inconsistencies, and many people after watching this interview have exonerated Jay-Z. So I want to talk about the interview, what we can glean from it, and how we should handle these type of allegations moving forward. Let's get into it. So just days after an accuser came forward and named Jay-Z in an already existing civil lawsuit where she says that Sean Puffy Combs and now Jay-Z, as well as an unnamed female celebrity, were part of a very brutal and heinous sexual assault back in 2000 following the VMAs, she came forward and did an anonymous interview with NBC News. I'm going to link the actual video to the interview down below in the description. I think it's worth you watching it in full because I don't want to put words in her mouth. I think it's best to hear her side of the story from her perspective. But as NBC, as well as other outlets are reporting, her coming forward has really highlighted a lot of inconsistencies in her story. So this is what she told NBC News. She says, "I have made some mistakes in recollections of that night." And she said even though that she has made some of these inconsistencies and not remembering certain details, she still affirms that they don't mean that the allegations are false. And here are some of the inconsistencies. The woman said her father picked her up after the alleged sexual assault, but he says he doesn't recall that. And just for background, at the time, the alleged accuser lived in Rochester, New York, so the VMAs took place in New York that year. So I believe it's about like a 6-hour, 5.5 to maybe 6-hour drive each way. So the father says that he doesn't recall picking her up from such a lengthy distance. The woman also claims she spoke to a celebrity at the after party where she said she was sexually assaulted, but that celebrity said he was not in New York at that time. So the celebrity in question is Benji Madden from the band Good Charlotte, and the accuser alleges that she had a conversation with him. It was very memorable, but by their own records and their memories, Good Charlotte was in the Midwest at the time. They were in Chicago performing, so they were not at the VMAs and they weren't even in the state of New York. So that's a big inconsistency. NBC continues, and images from that evening show Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs at a different location than the one that the woman described, although their whereabouts for the entire evening are unclear. A lot of Twitter and social media detectives saw photos of that night. So after the VMAs, Puffy, J-Lo, Jay-Z, and a lot of other celebrities were at Lotus nightclub, and that's here in the city, whereas the accuser says that the alleged incident happened at a private home. And the way she describes it, the home might have been in New Jersey, possibly like Connecticut or like a Long Island, certainly not a packed nightclub in downtown New York. I will say that in light of these inconsistencies and some of them being pretty significant, I think it does call into question her allegations and into what happened that night. Jay-Z has been very vehement in his innocence. He says, "This incident didn't happen," he said in a statement on Friday. And then he also pointed to the attorney, Tony Buzbee, saying that this incident didn't happen. You did not thoroughly vet this victim, this alleged victim, and yet you still came forward. You went to the media, you went to social media, and that's something that I think at the very least is unprofessional and possibly something that could get this person actually censured. Hove continues, "True justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory. This was over before it began. This 1-800 lawyer doesn't realize it yet, but soon." We don't know what that means, but I would not be surprised that given these new details that have come to light, and from what Jay is saying, he will probably go forward with some sort of like action against this attorney. And I can't blame him. I mean, just imagine being accused of such a heinous act, sexually assaulting and abusing a minor at the time. And then you have this lawyer who's going on interviews and social media and, pretty much kind of stirring up the pot. From Jay's perspective, he feels very much vindicated, and I think he wants to make an example of this attorney. I'm no legal expert, but I do think this will also affect the allegations against Sean Diddy Combs. So outside of the criminal filings from the state of New York, the vast majority of civil cases are coming from Tony Buzbee. This is this attorney. So if Jay-Z is able to, at the very least, undermine Buzbee's credibility, all of a sudden, the dozens and dozens of civil cases that Buzbee has filed against Puffy, people are going to start wondering, are they credible? Have the alleged victims been properly vetted? Or is it going to continue to be just these wild accusations that are being thrown around? In fact, very recently, Buzbee told BBC that he thinks there could be up to 300 or at the very least a couple hundred civil cases against Puffy. At some point, one's going to wonder, is he being sloppy? Is he really doing a good job of being meticulous and vetting these victims? Because I think the way that specifically, the Jay-Z allegations played out, so much of it started as whispers in the media, on social media, these conspiracy theories and people kind of pointing, wondering if Jay was this unnamed celebrity. Even Buzbee had gone on public platforms and said that if Celebrity B and Celebrity C, who's still this unnamed female celebrity, if they wanted to settle, he was open to it. And you just have to wonder, it doesn't even seem from Buzbee's own statements to NBC News that he properly vetted this accuser. So if that's the case, did he really expect Jay-Z and unnamed celebrities to just settle? I mean, we're talking about somebody's professional reputation, their personal reputation. Everyone has families. I really think when it comes to these kind of allegations within sort of a legal perspective, we have to be very careful and delicate with how we handle them. And for me, that's sort of my message. And it's always been, but I think this new information just underscores it. When it comes to talking heads, social media, fans, we just have to take a moment. I know everyone wants to be first and to, be able to be proven right. But we are talking about really serious allegations. And when we're talking about victims and abuse and alleged acts, it's so important to be right versus being first. And, even with myself, I've been very discerning and intentional how I share these things on social media, what I share on this platform, because I think it's really important. At a time now where everyone seems to be a legal expert, everyone's a private investigator, everyone seems to know everything, when in reality, they know nothing. And in that case, it's so important to let the authorities do their job, to let the media, in this case, NBC News actually spoke to the accuser, spoke to people in her life, such as her father, spoke to the attorney, spoke to Jay's team. That's how you report. It's not just putting something out there because it sounds right or because you're a fan of someone or you're not a fan of someone. That's not how you should be treating these type of allegations. At the end of the day, what all of us should want is for the world to just be a safer place, for this industry to be safer, for us to come to a place in society where very frank and transparent conversations about consent, about violence, about abuse can happen. And right now, it just feels like this feeding frenzy. So what turned into allegations against Puffy then became trying to cancel Jay-Z. And I don't know, I might do a whole video on that, but just the sentiment I saw on social media was really disconcerting. I know where some of it comes from, but just this clamoring to try to cancel Jay, to try to hurt him, I find it really shocking and a bit a sign of the times. But I don't know, maybe I'll do a separate video about that. But I think that's what it ended up becoming. And now it's turned into Jay-Z versus Tony Buzbee. And that's where the headlines are going to be. And I just feel, again, like we've lost sight of the narrative. And I don't see this being this great watershed moment. It's not going to be hip hop's Me Too. I think it's just going to be more and more chaos unless something changes. But like I said, I'm going to link the actual interview with the accuser down below, as well as Jay-Z's full statement. It was shared on social media. So take a look for it yourself. And as I said, like we're going to keep following this story as well as all of these hip hop Me Too situations and stories. But I do think it's so important in the pursuit to be like first, in the pursuit to sort of get all of the clicks, that we don't lose sight of the bigger picture and what this is really about.